Hello everyone, it's Thursday, long time no see. It's Nikki Gordon-Bloomfield here from Transport Evolved with some thoughts on the price point for the 2017 Hyundai IONIQ, which was announced in the last couple of days. And I'm on my way to a local hydrotherapy centre with Pepper in the back here because he regularly goes to hydrotherapy. He has a severe arthritis, and he goes to hydrotherapy because it helps with his joints, helps keep him supple and mobile. Isn't that right, mate? Yeah. So before I go on to Hyundai price points, I just want to thank all of those of you who sent me positive messages and well wishes this week in relation to that family member and the mental health crisis that took place. It's an ongoing mental health crisis that's been taking place in my family now pretty much for 5 years, maybe a bit longer. Growing up in intensity, didn't really peak until we'd moved over to the States. But to cut a long story short, we had a family member discharged from a hospital on Monday against medical advice. The insurance company denied them further treatment, so we had no choice but to bring them home. That then resulted in a crisis about 2 hours after they got back, full-blown mental crisis, resulted in them taking some dangerous risks, ending up in emergency room on the Tuesday and being then discharged the Tuesday afternoon from the same emergency room. We then had a very harrowing car drive in which we had to call 911 while driving down I-5 with a full-blown mental health crisis going on in the back seat. They have now been readmitted to the emergency room, and I think they're being held there for their own safety and for our safety until an appropriate treatment facility can be found. So we're going to be talking to lawyers and the insurance company and trying to get, someone to answer to their incompetence. But that's why we haven't been having Transport Evolved updates. I'm sorry that took a lot longer than I'd expected to explain, and I'm sorry for those of you who have just given me a thumbs down for talking about my personal life on the Transport Evolved channel. I'm talking about it really just to tell you why there's been no content this week. And by the way, those of you who gave me a thumbs down for apologising for there not being content, thank you. I love you so much. You're such kind, caring, considerate people. I'm glad that you put the continuation of electric car content above the safety of my family. Good job. You're a wonderful human being. Anyway, on to the Hyundai IONIQ price point. So this week we had the Hyundai IONIQ priced at $29,500 in the US for the entry-level model, and I think $32,500 or thereabouts for the high-end model, and that's before incentives. Now that means if you live in the state of California, for example, you can get a brand new Hyundai IONIQ for less than 20 grand after incentives, after state and federal incentives. Now that's a really good price point, and I should point out here that it is extremely competitive. Visibility is really impaired today. We're having really heavy rain right now, and I can't see more than about 200 feet in front of me, so that's why I kind of stopped talking there for a second. Looks like the rain is easing off now, and my AC is doing its job, it's clearing the windshield, which is good. I can see a little better than I could. So where was I? Oh yeah, the Bolt EV is about 8 grand more expensive before incentives than the Hyundai IONIQ EV. And for that, instead of getting a 124 mile EPA approved range, you get 234 miles of EPA approved range. So you get 110 miles more range for 8 grand. So you have to decide whether that is something that you think it's worth paying the extra money for. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I think that's a really good price point, and it's also a really good way of pushing down the price of other electric vehicles. So Nissan, Ford, BMW, all these other automakers, they've got no choice now but to put the price of their cars down, their electric cars down. Because if Hyundai is coming along and going, okay, we've got this 124 mile EV and we're going to sell it to you for under 30 grand before incentives, after incentives it's going to be closer to 22 grand, that's an insanely good price. You think about, when the Nissan Leaf first debuted, it was 30 grand. So that's a really good price point, and I think Nissan should be worried right now. And I think all the other automakers should be worried by this price point. If you add in the fact that Hyundai's got a really good reputation for reliability, and they've got this, lifetime warranty on the battery pack. Now, we should note the lifetime warranty only covers defects to manufacturing. It doesn't cover loss of range. So that means it won't cover the gradual loss, degradation of the car's battery pack over time, which is a bit of a shame, but it's normal. It's what every automaker is doing, even Tesla's doing that. So, that's normal. Should GM be worried that the Hyundai IONIQ is, $8,000 less than the Bolt EV and offers 124 miles of range? Not really. I think there will be some people who go for the Bolt EV because they can afford that extra range, they want that extra range. But there will be a lot of people who'll go for the Hyundai IONIQ because the Hyundai IONIQ is a new price point and it's aimed at a different market. It's aimed at a much more mainstream buyer in terms of price. The Bolt EV might be aimed at a more mainstream buyer in terms of expectation. Now, those 2 points haven't yet quite met, but I think they will eventually. And the other point to note here is that Hyundai is thinking about, at least what we understand so far, Hyundai is looking at bringing its longer range version of the IONIQ EV to market in just about a year's time. Now, this means one of two things. Either the 124-mile Hyundai IONIQ is only going to be available for a year, which seems like an awful lot of money to be investing in a car for such a short time frame if it's going to be replaced with a longer range variant next year. Or Hyundai is going to do the really super sensible thing and have the entry-level Hyundai IONIQ with 124 miles of range, and then a more expensive higher-end model with 200, maybe 250 miles of range, which is essentially what Tesla does when it does its different battery packs. That model has proven extremely successful for Tesla. And yes, most people go for the high-end model if they can afford it. But there are an awful lot of people I see driving around these parts in Tesla Model S 60s, 60Ds, 70Ds, 75Ds, depending on when they purchase the car. And I think this is a great, great thing because it means that more people will get behind the wheel of an electric car if you have these different battery options available. So all in all, I think what Hyundai's plan is looking forward is that it's going to have 2 different battery pack options available. And I think it's going to sweep up a lot of the as yet unsupported lower price EV market. I think that's a really good thing. Before Hyundai came out with the pricing for the IONIQ EV, really the only way if you wanted an EV that was technically available for under 25 grand after incentives was to take advantage of one of these purchase deals on something like a Nissan Leaf, or go for a used electric car, or if you're really lucky, find a Mitsubishi i-MiEV in stock that still hasn't been sold. I don't know if there are any still. They don't make them anymore, but I think there are still a few in parts of the US that you could probably still buy new old stock, if you will. The other really important thing to note about this EV pricing strategy, though, is that Hyundai and GM, I think, I might be wrong, but I think they have the same battery supplier in LG Chem. And this gives us a really good insight into how much the battery costs are for these cars. Now, at $29,500, I suspect Hyundai is making a little bit of a loss on that vehicle. But at $8,000 less than the Bolt EV, we can assume, I think, that the difference in battery capacity is about twice as large a battery in the Bolt EV, and it gives you about twice as much range, is about $8,000. So that gives us a really good chance of estimating the cost of the battery pack in the Bolt EV, which I think is probably about $16,000. And it gives us a really good chance of estimating the cost of the battery pack in in the Hyundai IONIQ is about 8 grand. Which means it gives us a really good idea of how much they're paying per kilowatt hour. Now, I don't know if that's actually the case or not, and there are other factors that come into play, so we can't say for sure. But it's a really good point to examine if you're so inclined. And if you do figure out the math, let me know in the comments below. Obviously, I can't do this while I'm driving because I'm concentrating on not dying right now. So obviously, I haven't yet got behind the wheel of a Hyundai IONIQ. This car's launch has been really soft. So I'm going to try and get one on loan and do a proper review of it. And in the meantime, I want to know if you've driven one or if you're buying one. So don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments below, as well as a thumbs up and a share if you liked. And if you didn't, give me a thumbs down and tell me why. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel too. And if you like what we do, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/transportevolved. Or if you would rather, wait until the end of this video and click on the link at the end in the credits, and it will take you to the Patreon website. As I say, I'm sorry that the content's been a bit low this week. Family comes first, but all being well, all signs point to me being around tomorrow to do TEN, so yay. Until then, have a great rest of your day. I'm Nikki Gordon Bloomfield, and keep evolving.